in a little bit. Yes, we'd like to invite you on stage. Uh, Harvard Satter Human Rights Fellow Jen Domino, did I get it right? Domino or Domino? Okay, Jen Domino. And this session is going to be moderated by Cheryl Ruth Soriano of De La Salle University. Let's please give them all a big round of applause.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this afternoon session. We have an exciting panel in store for you with panel members who work actively with or around technology in diverse ways. So allow me to first introduce the panel. Digital media has been pronounced as a critical resource for democratization. Just about a decade ago, new technologies were proclaimed for making it harder for traditional information gatekeepers, governments and corporations to stifle or control dissident speech. Digital media even became a critical resource for participation and for collective action. Yet, as this use reached critical mass, now we are worried about digital dystopia and the information crisis where technology is used by malicious actors in diverse ways, from the subtle to the overt to the shamelessly blatant. All we fear that might lead to democratic erosion. So can technology be reclaimed as a source for democratic participation again? Right, so we welcome our panelists. Art Samaniego is a technology news and business tech editor of the Manila Bulletin. Naz, or Carlos Nazareno, is an interactive developer who tinkers with technology to make numbers sing and dance. And Jan Domino is a lawyer and human rights fellow who works actively on studying the impact of social media on human rights and freedom of expression. So perhaps about 5 minutes of opening statement from you? Or a few minutes of opening. How would you have all worked on technology in diverse ways, and perhaps you could speak about, let's kind of backtrack a bit, at the time of promise, when technology was actually promising for democracy. So how would you characterize technology's role in a democracy then, before we move on to now?
Again, good afternoon. I'm Art Samaniego. My interest now is with blockchain and cybersecurity, because these two topics are the least understood by journalists like me. So nag-concentrate ako sa cybersecurity and that thing called blockchain. So technology is increasingly used to spread false information. So dalawang klase kasi yan, misinformation and disinformation. When we say misinformation, it is shared with no intention to harm. So the satire, o nagkamali lang talaga siyang mag-share. And disinformation, which is different because it is shared with the intention to deceive the readers. So it is also called information pollution, or mas kilala natin sa tawag na fake news. So ang ginagawa namin ngayon, ang ginagawa ko ngayon is I debunk fake news one story at a time. So that's my hashtag, be fully informed, debunking false news one story at a time. So when I posted about the fake news about Bam Aquino, I was attacked on Facebook as Dilawan. Kasi fake news yun. So, but when I posted a fake news about Bongo, there was this picture was shared by the other side. Hindi side ni Bongo. Yung mga tao may nakalagay na placards, gago, gago. And of course, sinasabi nila, this could not be fake. But when I shared the real picture, the real photo, I was attacked by other side naman. So I see myself as neutral because I am being attacked now by both sides. So how do we reclaim technology? pa hindi siya magamit ng false news. One, we could do it one story at a time. We as journalists, you as students, you have the right to correct these mistakes. And we can do it every day. Araw-araw, pag may nakita ka, you debunk it. So, there. Later. Sige.
Hi, I'm Carlos Nazareno. So, for me, technology is really something that's a bit neutral on its own. And it's what I'd like to think as a force multiplier. So, whatever's happening now, whether for good or bad, technology is used to amplify it. So that's what's happening with social media right now. So, for example, the use of radios. Radio was used to propagate the Rwandan genocide in 1994. So it was because of disinformation on radio. But on the other hand, it was the radio that also helped bring together EDSA in the Philippines with the call of Cardinal Sin on Radio Veritas. So as you can see, technology for communication can be used for great evil or great good. Recently, in the past years, there was the Arab Spring, in which democracy was brought to Tunisia. And then, however, we also have the Arab Winter, in which there was a fallout with other nations that participated in the Arab Springs. So, for me, social media can do a lot of things for good, even though it's used for a lot of misinformation, disinformation today. So for example, public clamor can affect change, like with public policies. Like, remember when the MMDA wanted to ban single driver cars on EDSA? So outcry on social media caused that to be not implemented anymore. So there, it's inherently neutral for me, but we must be careful in its use and be vigilant against its co-opting.
So I want to build on what Naz said and maybe push back a little bit. So what Naz said, it strengthens democratic participation among people. So to use his example, to further use his example on the radio, whereas before, traditional media had gatekeepers, had made the decisions about which content would be published and consumed by the public. Now, anyone can be a producer of content, and I think that's the main distinction between traditional media and social media platforms. And actually, that capitalizes on the word platform because it gives the illusion that, you know, anyone can speak, anyone can use this tool to express his or her opinion. But the pushback is on the aspect of neutrality. I don't think that it is inherently neutral because social media platforms are designed by human beings, even the technology behind it, or even the policy, like the community guidelines. Those are decisions made by human beings, and what they allow or not allow on their platform is a human decision. So I don't think that, and I think part of the illusion which protected social media companies for the longest time in the US, at least, is the illusion of neutrality. Na they can say that, oh, we're just a platform. We're just being used as a venue, as a tool for other people to speak, but it's not our speech. And on that basis, you cannot blame us. But take the community standards or the community guidelines of YouTube, for example. They get to decide. So it's one thing for you to post, but it's up to them whether or not for that post to remain on their platform. So that's it.
I wanted to follow through, Jen, on that point about technology not being neutral and the creators of technology having a role on telling us what we can or cannot do on the platform. Having said that, Facebook and other platforms have been coming up with various initiatives to tweak the platform, to test out various kinds of experiments with AI. What do you think about this? Are these initiatives, do you feel, sufficient, or are they missing the target? So could you speak about what you think about the current interventions that the platforms are doing, considering that they seem to be playing a crucial role in this?
I think that I would like to think that they're well-intentioned, but their interests are obviously different. So their interest is not first and foremost what is good for the public, because it's a corporation at the end of the day. So they're concerned about making profit. And that's why I think self-regulation, for example, will never be a sufficient problem. But in terms of regulating these companies, we must carefully think about a proper solution because, as I said a while ago, they're not like traditional media companies. These social media platforms don't even have a corporate entity in most of the areas where they operate. For example, in Myanmar, Facebook doesn't have an office in Myanmar. So how do you regulate something? And the concept of regulation has always been bound by territory. So how do you even regulate something that's not operating legally within, like you don't register with the SEC of that particular country? You know what I mean? The traditional hooks that states use to regulate companies cannot completely apply to them.
Any thoughts, Naz and Art?
Yeah. I'd like to add to that, in that platforms that do curation of content should be more responsible about the content on their systems, as they technically exercise editorial power over content. Because hindi lang sila flat na platform, na pipe lang. They use their algorithms to dictate which stories will appear on your wall, on your feed. And then that's for Facebook. For YouTube, they have this recommendation system that appears on the side. When you view a video, they recommend the next videos that will either autoplay or show you what next to watch. On Twitter, they're experimenting with a feature that's similar to Facebook's wall. They have this beta feature which will show the top stories instead of just flat time-based feed. So because they're doing that, they're technically exercising editorial control. So they should be more responsible in what they do as editors.
In 2017, Facebook experimented on labeling the content believed to be fake news. So it's called, nilalagay nila ng disputed. That's in 2017, but it was abandoned because academics told Facebook that it would not change people's mind. So hindi siya nagagamit. Wala siyang silbi. Also, if Facebook is really serious in stopping fake news, they should do it. Kaya nilang gawin eh. We experimented, gumawa kami ng mga fake accounts. So even before we could activate some of these accounts, na-block na kagad siya. So that's how intelligent Facebook is. So kung interesado silang tanggalin ng fake news, they could do it. Pero negosyo to eh.
With regards to fake news, Facebook has a policy of just downranking false content and not removing them from the platform. I think it's not enough to just downrank them. Because if you go to a group that's radicalized and full of this false content, people can still see it, even if it doesn't appear on their wall because it's downranked. When they go to these groups, they still see the content and the harm is being done. So I think Facebook should delete, not just downrank, but delete clearly false content that are flagged by their fact checkers.
Yeah. Again, back to Facebook, but also you could speak about other initiatives being introduced by, say, Google or Twitter. But Facebook has spoken, Mark Zuckerberg himself wrote about shifting to a focus to building privacy-focused messaging and social networking platform, and we know of this as an initiative they're coming up with to address the problem of disinformation and misinformation. So do you have any thoughts? Will a privacy-focused messaging and a privacy-focused social networking platform work?
I don't think it will help in the fight against disinformation, because what's going to happen is the people who organize and do this disinformation campaigns will just use the platform to protect their privacy and clandestinely operate, I think. So I don't think it's a solution for the disinformation problem.
I guess final question from me before I throw it to the audience. The theme of the conference is the crisis of democracy and technology's contribution to that. So I would like to invite you to speak about a clear example where you have seen technology as actually used that manifests this crisis that we're speaking about. Jen, I invite you to speak about it in Myanmar so that our audience can also grasp that this is not just in the Philippines, it happens elsewhere as well. And perhaps you can speak about this in the context of the coming elections or in the context of the previous elections as well.
Actually, one notable example of fake news with respect to the Rohingya crisis in Myanmar is the incident in September 2017, where 2 sets of chain messages were being spread via Facebook Messenger. And so one version of the same message was warning Buddhists about a Muslim invasion and that they should prepare themselves for an inevitable battle. And the other versions circulated to Muslims talked about Buddhists who are preparing to wage a war against Muslims. And this was the famous incident that Myanmar civil society alerted Facebook on back in 2017, but which Facebook ignored at first. And it was only until 3 days later that those messages were removed on Facebook Messenger. And I don't know if you remember, but last April 2018, Mark Zuckerberg talked about Myanmar, and he said that their systems were able to detect fake news. He was referring to this specific incident. And then Myanmar civil society wrote an open letter to him saying, actually, the technology that you're talking about is actually us. We alerted you on this incident only after 3 days have passed since the messages started circulating. So I think this is one good example of how technology, but also the human decisions behind that, the content moderation, affect the spread of fake news and offline real-world harm, such as the one that we see in the Rohingya crisis.
I think I'd like to speak about possible solutions with regards to democracy in elections, where technology can help. Because we've all seen how social media is being co-opted with fake news to drive wedges in the people we're looking to vote for. It's driven